So, as is normally the case with my videos where I have a go at the comment section, it's because someone said something potentially stupid and I'm feeling mischievous and my monocle is laser-eyed. However, this is from the Why Are We Like This video, and I want to go over some of the comments because some people asked or said some interesting things. And who knows, maybe I will even admit fault and profess I have uttered something nonsensical. Although don't hold your breath. I disagree because the point is to save innocent human lives. Murder is a moral wrong because you are extinguishing a life. Killing in defense or in war is justified, but not a baby who never did anything wrong to anyone. Okay, the war one is a bit iffy depending on which side you're on. You know, history is written by the victor and all, etc., etc. The saving innocent human life part, though, again, you're not actually doing that. Abortion isn't outlawed nationwide, it's merely outsourced to the more leftist state. It's a law decision that causes movements, not the diminishing of the action. The more moral red states, they're just scoring a cultural win that's largely symbolic. The effectiveness I have my doubts on. I'm not sure if you'd end up getting data of red states pre-ban, and then get data from neighboring blue states, and then compare the number pre and post both the ruling. So the hypothesis there being, there would be an increase of abortion in the blue states as the red state abortion seekers pour in. So subtract what you'd usually get from the blue state and see if the remaining number is roughly on par with what the red state had prior to the ban. Now bear in mind this could also be in all likelihood terribly screwy if you're getting a crossover influx from multiple states, so guess we'll have to wait and see there. I hope I'm wrong though. Stupid argument, a real leftist doesn't hear anything. Very true. He is a political zombie, an ideologically possessed thrall. It will end in bloodshed eventually, it always did in the past, so angering them will bring that war. So we fight, lots of us die, but eventually kill off the enemy completely. Yeah, that's the inevitable one I fear because, like you said, Joe, we're dealing with a horde of zombies. It's the Civil War argument, and like Michael Malice said, people are becoming far too comfortable with the violence, and you have one side that is being completely pumped with worldly disconnected stupidity in this constant feedback loop, and considering the state of the country, or the world for that matter, I don't see it not coming apart at the seams. Morality comes second to the Constitution. Morality doesn't protect us from our rulers. The Constitution at least sets up speed bumps. My moral feelings be damned when it comes to giving the government the right to tell me and my countrymen what to do with our bodies. No, that is an absurd position to take. Morality supersedes all forms of government. Hell, if you had morality in man as a default, period, you wouldn't have need for government in the bloody first place. The whole point of the Constitution was to construct a new type of government to keep society stable and orderly. Well, that into illegally centralized power because the Articles of the Confederation proved a disaster because guess what? People aren't all that moral. I wouldn't just say morality protects you from your rulers, I would say morality is the only thing that protects you from the rulers. If you oppose the tyrannical, overarching rule of the state, you do so on the basis of your moral compass. This may sound harsh, but I mean well, Spoon. I love the show, thank you. I just don't understand the thinking. Well, let's see if we can clear that one up for you. If I understand you correctly, and I'm not misinterpreting you, which I'm trying not to, it sounds like you believe repealing Roe v. Wade was a mistake because it doesn't create dialogue. Somewhat. But how it can create a dialogue with the left of center? Some of them do want to, the more moderate among them, but the more extreme soy-filled life forms do not care to talk. They purposely avoid engaging in dialogue. Why would I bother to try? If they refuse to talk and only force their way, why would I not reciprocate? You criticize Republicans for fearing to wield great power when the left does, but should we not make the change on abortion despite the shrieking? They would make any change regardless of our opinion. In the meantime, how many lives might be saved? Sure, not as much as I would hope, since as you say, they will do it regardless of the law. But perhaps some will not get an abortion, or better yet, abstain from unsafe sex practices more often. Again, I love the content and I am not trying to be harsh. This just seemed to contradict some of your earlier views in other views. I would love to think we could come together and talk, but I am not sure that is possible anymore. I'm not sure which bit I'm contradicting myself on, Rob, but do feel free to tell me. And yes, I do criticize the Republicans for not wielding power because they aren't doing so competently. And it's because they're not really Republicans. They're establishmentarians just at a lower gear. They aren't absolutists. It seems to me, and I could be wrong, that incrementalism only goes one way. You can't be a little bit good, but you can be a little bit evil. So compromising with evil will only get you evil and no good. And then you keep getting a little bit evil over time, over and over again, until you get to arch-evil Lord Bastard. And then the incrementalism by this time is so well entrenched, so the opposition just wants to take a giant torture because it makes more sense to just go at it with a hammer. And there would only be one person that holds that hammer. And then the incrementalists screech all damn day, oh, fascism, welcome to the modern day. Far as the dialogue part goes, it's not so much the dialogue as much as it is a change in the social setting, I feel. This is admittedly out of my intellectual pay grade, so to speak, and I pitched this to Sargon before, and he also agreed, that it's probably true that I don't think it's possible to change someone's political positions unless something provokes them into the change via circumstances that affect them personally. So the hypothesis being implemented here with the change in the laws is the inconvenience of having to cross state lines to get the abortion enough to induce the social change, potentially bypassing the dialogue? And we have to remember, and this is something far too many people get hung up on, and I've not seen anyone talk about this, at least not in the context of abortion anyway, is it's not the abortion that's the problem. It's the social disconnect of having far too much recreational sex. The abortion is but the visibly noticeable potential consequence of too much of that in society. If you can lower the abortion tally but marriage rates are still falling and so is the replacement birth rate, you're still going to have some problems. And I'll be honest, I'm not that bothered with the dialogue as far as the abortion argument with the far left goes, because those freaks can't even define gender. They'd sooner castrate themselves than fuck, so they're not going to be much of a concern for me. The thing is, considering what little power in the apparatus the right has, I can see why they would pull the trigger and flex via the Supreme Court. What seismic activity it induces politically, however, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. And okay, Tristan and Irish brought up tempering the socially inappropriate behavior via the laws, and I brought up prohibition. Looking at it now, that was probably not the smartest thing to say, because abortion is not the same as drinking, which might be the most obvious no shit thing I'll ever say on this channel. At least I hope so, because that one was quite a doozy. Now, I want to discuss this, but I don't think I can without it looking like I'm sort of doubling down. But anyway, the overlap of the two is the attempted induction of a behavioral change via the law. But as far as I can tell, that is the only overlap. Now, here's where there's a problem and where the comparison falls, kind of flat, and why this wasn't the smartest one. If you are trying to temper off of something, that is an individual's decision trying to test and further their discipline. That requires an individual's determination. But if you're attempting to impose this coercive temperance on a collective via the state, especially when the demand for the product you're trying to restrict or curb is still very much alive, you're not doing anything except spurring on the creation of a black market and all the potential trouble that comes along with that. Alcoholic beverages are a consumable desired by the many. It's not an abortion, which is obviously not a consumable. One is the result of the reckless recreational sex. The other can ironically result in the need for an abortion. And oh look, we've come full circle. So it's different in the sense that one is was the catalyst for the supposedly ill behavior. The other is the potential consequence of a different type of bad behavior. And I struggle to see how the state is going to be the tool to alter either, because it doesn't ever work that way. The state sucks for this. It's not the appropriate vehicle for change. It's like anything made by Acme. It will just blow up in your face. Prohibition is a good example, though, because yes, alcohol consumption was quite high prior to America going dry, and as is usually the case, it was pushed by a bunch of miserable feminists with a chip on their shoulder. You know, they must have been particularly grim-looking gremlins if even during copious amounts of alcohol consumption at the turn of the century you still couldn't get laid. But anyway, if the words of H.L. Mencken are anything to go by with this quote, 5 years of prohibition had at least this one benign effect. They have completely disposed of all the favorite arguments of the prohibitionists. None of the great boons and usufructs that were to follow the passage of the 18th Amendment has come to pass. There is not less drunkenness in the Republic, but more. There is not less crime, but more. There is not less insanity, but more. The cost of government is not smaller, but vastly greater. Respect for law has not increased, but diminished. Again, Acme with the face blowing, etc., etc. And Tristan pointed this out. When Prohibition ended, the rate of alcohol consumption was quite lower. Yeah, no shit. They're in the middle of the Great Depression. Oh, I know what we need right now. A burgeoning booze industry. I mean, hell, the whole reason the government repealed Prohibition, aside from the fact that it was incredibly unpopular with skyrocketing crime rates, is because the government was hemorrhaging money. They lost over $11 billion in revenue since its inception and over $300 million trying to enforce it. $11 billion during the 1920s. I think That was more than half of the debt that Woodrow Wilson accumulated when he left office thanks to his grossly arrogant incompetence during the First World War. So it's not for any moral reason they dropped prohibition, it was because the government was fucking greedy. And then when you look at the next several decades, you'll see whenever there's an economic boom, the rates of alcohol consumption suddenly rises. Geez, I wonder why. Culminating in Trump's last years with a rate as high as it was prior to prohibition. Again, I wonder why. And lastly, Viridian asked me what I would like to see happen instead. Well, ideally what I'd like to have seen happen is this not becoming a frickin' political issue, but you know, it's bleeding into absolutely everything these days, and considering politics are becoming increasingly inescapably vicious, yeah, I don't see this ending well. But anyway, next video coming up will be why libertarians should be monarchists. And that is all for today, and I will see you all next time.